Welcome everyone to the Division of IT training webinar. My name is Kyle Blumenkamp and I will be your trainer this afternoon. We are here to talk about advanced Qualtrics, a couple of specific techniques in Qualtrics that build on the webinar that we did in January. So if someone would put in the chat pod, if you are hearing me okay, please just put a yes in the chat pod. So that I know that my audio is working properly. It looks like it is working properly. Okay, that means that the audio is going. Great, thank you all very much. I have become a really large fan of Qualtrics. I've used various survey software, leading up to last July. I'd used SurveyMonkey, and Google has a survey form option. But then we decided that we were officially supporting Qualtrics, and I really dove into it, and the farther I dive, the happier I become. I want to talk about some of the advanced things that we can do in Qualtrics. More specifically, I want to do a quick review of piped text and carry forward. I want to talk to you about email triggers. And then a majority of the time I think I want to use on embedded data, how to carry data into the survey that you can then use in the survey. And if we have time, we'll get to branching. These are the major topics that we cover in our in-person Qualtrics advanced class over here in the Arts and Science building. So if this goes a little fast for you, or you'd like a refresher of this stuff, feel free to sign up for our advanced Qualtrics class, and I'll go over when those are available at the end of the hour. So give me just a second here while I stop sharing and share something else. I'm going to go into Qualtrics. Okay, and now you are seeing my Qualtrics screen. I want to show you the survey the end result of the survey, and then I want to show you the survey that we are going to create. So this is an event survey. It's a fake survey that I made for attending a university event. Okay, and you'll see I've broken things into different blocks, which is important. In the last one, we all worked in the same block. But the more I learn about it, the more I find that breaking up your information into separate blocks can be very, very helpful, especially in things like branching. So you'll see I have a student demographic block, and then I have a female block and a male block. And I want females to answer one and males to answer the other, obviously. So we're going to have to use some branching to split those out so that males don't get females and vice versa. We have an academic affiliation block where we're using a carry forward, a club information block with some skip logic, and I may or may not do the skip and display logic. And then a lot of piped text. You'll see some of like this right here. That is a piped text field where we're piping in information from other places. So this is what the end survey is going to look like. And the beginning survey, let me get over here to the start. If you guys ever have questions, feel free to post them in the chat pod. I'll have assistants for part of the hour, but then my assistants have to leave, and so I will try and keep an eye on that chat pod to answer questions as they come up. Let's see here. I have two named the same, and I apologize for that. Let's do this one right here. Here we go. And so what I did is I went in and recreated these questions so that I don't have to type them all up from the beginning to save us some time. The first one I want to put down is in the club division. Are you a member of any clubs, teams, or organizations within your academic department? All right, and this is a quick skip logic question, because if they say no, they don't have to answer the next three questions, which are about their club. So remember to put in skip logic. We simply hit the gear on the left side of the question, add skip logic, and then just walk our way through the logic statement. If yes is selected on this question, well, it's not yes. The skip logic is if no is selected, then skip to the end of this block. And then we're done. And that's a simple skip logic. The display logic we'll go back and do later on the gender question. And then let's move on to a pipe text entry. So I'm going to go in here to this statement, and it looks like I didn't pull out my pipe text entry when I was practicing. So the way I would do pipe text is I would start a question and say, as a member of, and then I would leave a blank, as a member of space, do you feel that this club organization helps you achieve your academic goals? And what I want to do is I want to put in whatever question they answer up here under are you a member of any clubs, teams, which one is, please note which is your favorite. I want to put whatever they answer here down into this next question. And so the way we do that is you'll see where my cursor is. I'm going to click on the piped text button. And then it's pretty simple. It says, where do you want to get this information from? And you'll see there are lots of places to get piped text. And we'll talk about embedded data fields here in a little bit. But from here, it's a simple survey question. Right? And I'll look up, it's Q13. Okay, and so what I want is not the selection, the yes or no, but I want the selected choice entered text. So they're going to select yes, and then they're going to enter text into that box. And this means that I'm choosing the selected text entry from that club, team, or organization. So that at the base is how you pipe in text. You're essentially creating a pipe from one piece of information and delivering it over here at the other. And so let's try that again. I have another question down here waiting for a pipe text. Are there other clubs you were interested in that you couldn't participate in due to your involvement in X? And I want X to be that favorite club again. So again, we go to pipe text, survey question. I remember it's that Q13. And I want selected choices entered text. So anything they put in that box, I can pipe in elsewhere. And that's true for any question across Qualtrics. If you have them write in a text entry, you can then use that text entry that they wrote in later on down the line. For example, you could say, what is your first name, and have a box, and what is your last name, and have a box. And I put in my name, Kyle. And in the next question, you would have it say, hi, Kyle, welcome to this survey. That kind of stuff's very simple, and the tool for that is piped text. Okay. We'll use pipe text a little bit more because you can use it anywhere, and it's a very valuable tool. But the next thing I want to talk about is email triggers. An email trigger is just that, really. If a survey taker answers a particular question in a particular way that we have determined, then it will trigger an email to a particular person. So let me put this in context for you. This is a post-event survey, and I might ask a question of, did you enjoy this event? And I want them to enjoy it, so if they enjoyed it, fantastic. But if they say disagree or strongly disagree, meaning they didn't enjoy that event, that would trigger an email to whomever I want, me or whomever, that says there was a survey taker that answered a question a certain way. So you can do it with anonymous surveys, or you can do it with tracked surveys. If you're doing an assessment, you can set up email triggers so that if they get below a certain score, that can set an email trigger off. But lots of different ways to do it. But in this particular survey, I want to put a trigger on this question right here. As a member of, etc., whatever it is, do you feel that this club, team, or organization helps you achieve your academic goals? And so if they say no, right, because we want all of our clubs, teams, and organizations to help achieve academic goals. So if they say no, I'd like it to set off an email trigger to me that says that they said no on this, okay? So we're going to scroll up here to the top. Email triggers are over here under Advanced Options. Triggers and email triggers. Now, the base state, the default state of an email trigger, once you set it up, if you see her here at the top, send an email on survey complete. So if I set up an email trigger and I don't click on this add a condition here, I'm going to get an email after every single person completes the survey. And if you're doing a timely survey, that can be a very valuable thing so that you know when every single person the minute that every person is done with that survey so you can get your data collected as soon as possible. This is going to be an ongoing survey I want to use time and time again. So I don't want to get an email just when they complete the survey. I want to get an email when they complete the survey and remember if that question that I asked before was answered no. So we're going to add a condition to the email trigger right here. Click on Add Condition, and then you can add any condition you want. So I could add it based on how they answered a question, or I could add it based on embedded data, or a multiple of those. So I'll get to embedded data later, and then you'll see what I mean. But here we're at question. If question, I believe it's this one. And if the choice is no, remember we have to put the choice no selected. So if it doesn't further their academic goals, then I want it to trigger an email. And it's going to trigger an email to whoever I put in this address. That's my email address. Maybe I want that to go to the standard training box, training@missouri.edu. So whoever's monitoring the inbox gets that right away. The from name, we can make whatever we want. So we could say training event logistics or whatever. You can put the from name in there, whatever you want. If they hit reply to the email, I'm going to send this out, it comes to me. Then if I hit reply to it, it can't get sent back to Qualtrics, so I need to provide an email address there to reply to. So I can put in my email address or anybody else's. And the survey name goes into the subject. And then down here, you can put any message you want in. The student said they didn't like the event, or anything. You can include a response report, and I also like to include the full question text so that when I get the email, it will remind me of which question triggered that email, and it will include a report of that student's or that survey taker's responsees. So we double check here. We have our survey condition set. We have all of our to and from. And we could say, please contact them to follow up for remediation. Send immediately, or you can wait to send it in an hour or days or several days, which can be kind of nice. You can add multiple conditions to the trigger, so it has to satisfy multiple conditions. So say we had freshmen through seniors in our event, and I cared if a freshman didn't like the event because they're coming back the next year, but I didn't care if a senior didn't like the event because I feel they might have senioritis and they're not coming back next year anyway, right? This is all hypothetical, of course, but I could set a second condition that asked based on their student status or their standing, which I have in embedded data, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. So you can put multiple conditions in. You can add multiple triggers. So I could have multiple email triggers going various directions based on the answers of this survey. All right, so we'll save a trigger on that question. That's the only thing I don't like. I love Qualtrics because anytime you make a change, there's a little icon or there's something that says, hey, we've added this condition to this question. And email triggers does not have that. So that's one thing I don't really like. I wish that it had some little something over here at the left which showed you that there was an email trigger on that. But that's email triggers, and you can use them many, many different ways. Again, if you have any questions in the chat pod, or if I'm going too fast, or you want me to repeat something, please let me know. Now I want to move on to embedded data. And what embedded data is information that carries along with your panel members. So if we'll all do a quick review, we get our survey all complete here, and we want to send it out to a specific panel. We go here to the panel, right? And then you can choose from any of your existing panels that you have, and eventually I'm going to use this Star Wars Academy, but this is a quick review. I'm going to click here on Create New Panel. right? And you can call it whatever you want. I'll call it test panel 1 so that I don't get confused, and I'll click on create. And it asks again how you want to get your panel in here. I could say add panel members. And then we can get these embedded data fields when I click the plus sign. So I could say this is my coworker Riata. No external data reference. I'm not going to put anything in language, but in embedded data A, I might put her, this might be her official position, right? IT trainer expert. And over here, if I had another piece of data, maybe it could be anything in the world. It could be a number or a letter or her gender or her address or whether or not she liked peanuts or really truly anything, so long as I remember what the embedded data field is so that I can change it. So I'll also change the name of embedded data field A to say position. Right, and I might take embedded data B and say gender if I already knew that, right? So those are ways to add embedded data, but this is kind of the long way around. When I add panel members, rarely do I add them from this window screen right here. I usually, I'm going to click cancel here and go back and click on import from a file. When I click on import from a file, you'll see there's this example document right here that opens up in Microsoft Excel. And that document has, let's see here if I can do this quickly, how long this takes me to do, because I'm going to need to share that. Stand by 1 second, please. Okay, now I've opened up the file that I just downloaded from Qualtrics, and you'll see that it's a Microsoft Excel file that's actually a CSV, which is called a comma separated values file. But you can see it's set up in the exact same way here, embedded data A, embedded data B, and we can put that information in here. So this is the way I like to bring in my panels, because often I have 50 or 100 people I'm emailing, and then I can just put their first name in here. And here I was going to put IT trainer expert, and here we were going to do gender, right? So we would change embedded data field A to say position, and embedded data field B to say gender, and would go through this way and could add as many of these people as we wanted to. Okay, so that's what I did for this other panel here. Once again, I have to stop screen sharing and go back into Qualtrics. Standby 1. Bingo. Okay, so I used this file, downloaded it, put in the names of my Star Wars characters, right? And then it uploaded my Star Wars characters. And I can now go in here to, if I go into edit in the panel, I can see the embedded data. So this is Star Wars Academy, right? They're all in school. Standing, graduate, and then what side they're on, light or dark. Just showing my nerd qualities once again. But I have embedded 2 data fields for each of these panel recipients, right? They're standing and then which side they're on. And so this is my panel that I've used with the Excel field and attached embedded data to. So let's go back to a survey, and now let's start to use some of this embedded data in my survey. Scroll back down here. And we're going to add a new question underneath academic affiliation. Here, enter standing here. See, I've already created the question where I want to pipe in the embedded data. So I'm using a combination of 2 tools now. I'm piping in text from an embedded data field. Okay, so I'm going to delete my placeholder, and I'm going to pipe in some text, but instead of from survey question like we did before, this time I'm going to say embedded data field. And I remember that embedded data field is standing. And so as a blank in your academic unit, what is your biggest hindrance to success? And so that's going to go back and grab the standing column from the embedded data field. And so for the first one, who is Darth Vader, it's going to say, as a graduate in your academic unit, what is your biggest hindrance to success? If you used Kylo Ren's, it would say, as a freshman in your academic unit, what is your biggest hindrance to success? So if I wanted to practice this one more time, we might go down here under academic affiliation. Do you think that being on the, and now let's pipe in some text from an embedded data field, and this one is called side, remember, whether on the light side or the dark side. And I understand that light side is a little bit not correct when you're talking about Jedi, right? So if you're, yeah, all you fellow nerds out there, I understand, but for clarification of the question, I'm letting it go. So do you think that being on the blank side helps or hurts you as and now we could even pipe in more text, remember the embedded data field, and we can pipe in standing. So here's two piped embedded data fields in the same question. And so for Darth Vader, of course, it would say, do you think that being on the dark side helps or hurts you as a graduate? And then I can even say student in here. And I'm sure that if any of you were graduate students, you'd all have varying opinions on which side you should be on to most successfully administer your graduate degree. But we'll go in here, say yes, go in here and say no, move our choices down to 2, and now I've used 2 embedded data fields piped into one question. Okay. Lots of different ways we can use piped text, right? Just one more example of a way that you could use piped text. I could go back up here into my email trigger. Right, and we can open up the email trigger here, and let's say this student is a and then we insert standing from our embedded data field. So see here, here's a link where I can pipe in text even into my email trigger. The student is a graduate and said they didn't like the event. Please contact them to follow up for remediation. Okay, so I can pipe text and pipe those embedded data fields even into email triggers. I can pipe them into custom end of survey messages. I can pipe them into emails that I send out via Qualtrics. So I love the pipe text tool. It helps us get information from one place to another. And when used in tandem with the embedded data field, it can be really valuable in helping with your analyzing of your results. Now, I've had a question before that said, instead of embedded data, why wouldn't you just ask them that question and then pipe in text from the answer? But if we take it back to like student standing, I remember lots of friends who went to advising appointments when we were in college, and they went in thinking they were a junior, and they came out realizing that they were a sophomore because they had miscounted their credits or something like that. Embedded data allows you to, as the survey overlord, so to speak, to have double check over that data. That way there's no chance that it can be end user error. It can be your error as the data overlord. You put in the wrong standing into the embedded data field, but it's never going to be the end user error, which is something we're always trying to avoid. We're trying to minimize the possibilities that our end users can make errors in the data that we are collecting. Okay, so that's piping text into the email trigger that I already created before. I can save that trigger and it goes back and is saved. Moving right along, now remember I talked about how right here on Q4, what is your gender, male, female, or don't forget about those sensitive questions, folks. If you ask a sensitive question, you need to allow for the opportunity to let them opt out of that question. And remember, when you, for example, on a gender question, you'd put the two, male and female, and then you'd put a third option in, I prefer not to answer. And then when you right-click that answer choice, you get the option to exclude from analysis. And what that does is that takes the answer out of your data so that you don't have blank data in there. So if you send this out to 20 people and 19 people answer with their gender and one says I prefer not to answer, your N, your number of answer respondees for Q4, is not going to be 19 out of 20, it's going to be 19 out of 19. So that's just a little trick for when you want to give somebody an opt-out and then not include that in your analysis. But I want to use this question as a jumping off point for branching. Because if they are, we're talking about, this next one is 2 blocks are about gender inequality in your academic division. Again, these are all hypothetical questions, and I made these all up for the purposes of this demonstration. This is not an official survey. So under Q4 here, it says, what is your gender? I have a male block that I want to ask all the males, and I have a female block that I want to ask all the females. Obviously, I don't want them to crisscross. So there might be a way to do this with skip and display logic and a combination of a bunch of skip and display logic, but the easier way to do this is through branching. And one of the keys to branching, remember I said earlier that I had started breaking things into blocks whenever possible, and that's critical for branching. So if you have branches, your different branches should be in their own block, and that's an important tip, right? So anytime you have branching, take it to its own block, right? So I have one for male, one for female. We'll scroll up here to the top, and we'll click on Survey Flow. And you'll see it's a standard linear survey flow right now. First introduction block, then demo block, male block, female block, academic, club event, and then the metadata block at the bottom. Right here is where I want to create a branch, because I want the last question in student demographic to decide whether or not they go through the male or female block. And so I'm going to add a flow below the demographic I want to add. And here I'm going to add a branch. Right? Lots of things you can add, other saved blocks, embedded data, an authenticator. Those are even more advanced things. I'll probably do another advanced webinar talking about a couple of these other things in the future as we dive more into it. But for now, I'm going to click on branch. So I'm going to add a branch, and you see it says, I love it. It keeps you from making errors as much as it can. This is not going to be triggered until you add a condition. So unless you add a condition, no branch. So we put in the first branch, and we say, if question Q4, what is your gender? Male is selected. Then I want to put the male block here. And now I can delete that male block from down here. I just moved the block into the survey to make it the easiest for me to import. So now if I were to leave this in here, you'll see it's showing the male block once and twice. And so we don't want that at all. So we're going to delete this male block here. Okay, now I'm going to add a second branch, but I'm adding it, remember, to that question that's in the student demographic branch. So I'm going to add another branch here, and this condition, I'm going to go back to that same question and say female, and now I'll add, not the branch, sorry, click the wrong thing. If female, then I want to put in the female block. Sheila asks, so you need to set up your blocks beforehand, before the branching, and I've found that to be extremely valuable, Sheila. I just went in, if I know I want to branch in a survey, I just go in and I write the blocks as though it was one long fell survey, like everyone was getting every question. And then that makes it the easiest for me to go back and branch them out, and then it's just one more step to delete that block so that it's not duplicated within the survey. But yes, I have found it easiest to write all of the blocks first, or even write all of the questions first in one block and then split them into different blocks. It's however you want to do it. There's 5 ways to do everything. But yes, writing them first is very helpful. So back to our branching. We branched if male and then deleted the male block from below. We added a second branch to the same limb, so to speak, and put the female in. And so we're going to delete the unbranched female block from below. Okay? And then, whether you are female or male, you get the rest of the block. And if you choose, I prefer not to answer this question, you don't go through either block and you skip to academic affiliation. So the only way you get the male branch is if male is selected, and the only way you get the female branch is if female is selected. If you pick the third one, you don't answer either of those questions and you move on in the survey. Okay, well, let's take a look at this. I'm going to go down here, save the flow, and now go change my look and feel. I have it on a dark gradient where that's fine. Save that, and we will preview this survey. I like how it looks on mobile and on computer. All right, so we'll start to answer the question. Drag my number of age, what state am I from? And that's just a drop-down selection box, and I went and copied all of the text of all the states and dropped them in. That way they can't mistype the word Missouri, right? So then I say male. Now when I click on next, I get the male questions. And I say, as a male, do you ever see instances of gender inequality in your academic division? Right? We can answer these however we want to. I click forward again, and you see then I don't get the female block, right? I only get the other block. So I can say, in your academic unit, which of these but you'll see what happened here, okay? What I have on this question, on the rank the things question, this is why previewing is important. On the rank the things you listed in order of how much they affect you, I needed, and I forgot to put this at the beginning of the hour, I wanted to show you, review with you guys, carry forward. And what I wanted to do is carry forward whatever they selected in the hindrance question to the follow-up hindrance question. So I can just stop this preview now, go back to the Qualtrics survey, and Q12, remember, is where I wanted to carry forward. So we'll carry forward items, and it already guesses that you want to carry forward the things from the previous choice. And so we double check down here from the previous question, sorry. Double check our carry forward logic, carry forward selected choices from as a blah 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 in your academic unit. So we say done there. So that should work. We'll go back to preview. Oh, I think there's one other thing I need to do. I need to put a page break between this question and this question. One of the things I've found with Qualtrics is that it's difficult for them to carry forward questions that are inputted on the same page where they're going to be carried forward, right? And so if we remember when I was looking at that preview a moment ago, Q11 as a blop in your academic unit, what's the biggest hindrance, and Q12 were on the same page. And so what I want to do to ensure that my carry forward works properly is to add a page break, which is over here at the right side of the page, after Q11. So I click on Q11, add page break between Q11 and Q12, which ensures that Q12 can pick up the carry forward choices properly. We'll go back up here to preview, and I'll hustle through this here. And see, watch, if I prefer not to answer this question and I hit go, you see it skips both of the other gender blocks and takes me to in your academic unit. I pick 4 of the 6, click forward, and you'll see here that this is a rank the things you listed in order of how much they affect you with the biggest affectation on top. Well, that's not the correct rank, but it feels like I need a little more information on this question for them to figure out that you can click and drag. So one of the things that I think people don't realize about this question is that it's a draggable question. So I'll probably want to go back in and put in a little thing in parentheses after the question that says click, hold, and drag each selection to move them. Right? And because I hadn't put in my embedded data, it doesn't say dark side or light side, helps or hurts you as a student. If you're a member of any teams, yes, I am a member of chess club. I hit forward to test my, oh, look at my pipe text. As a member of chess club, do you feel that this team organization helps you achieve your academic goals? Remember, if I click no here, I'm sending training@missouri.edu an email trigger that says that I clicked no. Right? So I would do that one again. And down here, remember another pipe text entry. I piped in the text from Chess Club on the previous page. Are there other clubs you were interested in that you couldn't due to your involvement in Chess Club? I'll say no to that question. Right? And the rest of them are just pretty normal questions that you've seen before. So I'm going to stop this preview because I've double checked all the things that I wanted to double check. Down to my rank and file, remember I wanted to say click and drag the choices to move them. That way they know how to do it. Okay, well, we did get through that stuff quite a lot quicker than I expected to. We have a few more minutes. Please feel free to put any specific chat questions you have over in the chat window. But one other thing I want to show you is the randomizers. We talked about it in the basic class a little bit, but not always in the advanced class. So you can randomize at any level. You can randomize the choices within a question, which we do this way. Go to the gear of the question, randomization. We can randomize all, or if you'll notice, so that randomizes all of them, but you'll notice I have this other column out here, and almost always we want other to be the final thing, right? We don't want that to be up in the choices. So that randomization is a little bit different. We go to randomization, advanced randomization, and now I can move my fixed display order and randomize the ones that I want. Right, so all of these are going to be randomized. They might show up first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth. But if I leave other in the fixed column, other will always show up as the final option. And so we'll click on Save and Close. So that's how you randomize choices within a question. I see questions showing up in chat, and we'll get to those here in just 1 minute. That's how you do it in question. If I want to randomize questions within a block, that here is at the block option. So in my mail block, if I wanted to randomize the first 2 questions, I could go to block options and question randomization. And once again, it's kind of the same scenario here. Pick the ones you want randomized, but I want that text question that kind of groups all of the previous ones together to be at the bottom. I click Save and Close, and now that entire block will be randomized. Now entire, I mean Q8 and 9 will be randomized depending on how they show up. So to be consistent, I really should go up here to the female block and randomize their first 2 questions as well. So that's randomizing questions within a block. And then finally, if I want to randomize the blocks in which way they show up, you have block randomization here. Where you can randomize any or all of them. Now that's one I don't do very often because I always have an intro screen, right, and I always have an end screen, and you can randomize blocks within there as well so that you keep your intro and closing blocks the same but randomize other blocks in between. It's just one I don't use as often. I'm more apt to leave the blocks in the order that I want them and yet randomize the questions within the blocks. So that's randomization at the question level, at the block level, and at the survey level. So now let's answer a couple questions from chat. Diane says, what does add note do? It is a note for the people developing the survey, not visible to people taking the survey. That was an easy one. Yeah, Diane, add note is for people developing. Materials or guides for Qualtrics classes. I have online at training.missouri.edu the official Qualtrics manual. It is the unexpurgated full 250-page version of the manual that handles every possible Qualtrics thing anyone could ask for. It has a really great index, and I'm working on developing more step-by-step manuals for our in-person classes, but for right now we're offering the entire manual, Sheila, beginning let's see here if I can pull up and find out when other Qualtrics classes will be offered. And if there aren't any on the schedule now, we will try and get some on there. The numbers dropped just a little bit, but we think with the way things are coming online that there will be more. Oh, great. Thanks, Mel. Mel put the full Qualtrics schedule right here in the chat for us. Back to more questions. Other Qualtrics questions being offered. Answered that one. Integrating with mturk. No, Sheila, unfortunately, I don't even know what mturk is, so I don't know how to integrate that. If you wanted to come into an open lab on Friday, I'd be happy to discuss things with you, and I could look into mturk a little bit, but we don't have any classes on integration with that. Eleazar asks, what is taught at the advanced training? This webinar is essentially a shotgun version of what is taught at the advanced training classes. At the advanced training class, instead of just watching me do this, you all do this as well. I give you this survey and we all practice all of the steps. So this is a great primer for that advanced class. And then what we do in the advanced class is practice with this post-event survey, and then I actually workshop the rest of the class with anybody else who wants to stay and help on individual things. So that's the advanced class. Is there a way to add, Diane asks, is there a way to add I information buttons next to a survey question? You're talking about like a light box pop-up information button, Diane, and I don't know of a way to do that. Qualtrics is robust enough. We might be able to put up a show logic question after they answered it or before they answered the previous one, but insofar as I know, an I information button, I have not seen any way to do that right there. Sheila says, what's the URL? Go ahead, Mel. Wonderful. Mel is our behind-the-scenes assistant here. She is helping me out with the chat as well. So if I find anything out, we will tweet that out. Sheila says, what is the URL for the manual? And Sheila, I can't get you a direct URL. You go to training.missouri. Here, I can walk you through it here on our screen. Go to training.missouri.edu, log in using your username and password. Right, then over here in the blue window, or in the blue box on the right hand side, click on IT Training Manuals and Exercise Files. Click Qualtrics and Submit, and right there, it says Qualtrics Introduction, but we should change that name because that is actually the full manual. So that's how you would get to the manual Sheila. Diane wants to know a little bit about Shibboleth. I will talk about that in just a moment. What level of data analysis can you make with Qualtrics? Elazar says, if we go back here to Qualtrics, when we're talking about the results in analyzation, right, I can select all of the results. It has some basic reporting features in the reporting tab. We'll give you some graphs and allow you some cross-tab queries, that kind of thing. But the thing I always do, right, I can edit the report, look at the responses. My standard thing, because I am an Excel guy, is I download the data and I put it into CSV format for Excel. And there's lots of different, you can go to plain text, JavaScript, SPSS if you use SPSS. And then I just export the data out into Excel, and then I do any manner of level of data analysis there, Elazar. We can, from within Qualtrics, you can look at an aggregated report, or you can look at individual results. But including and excluding in analyzation, I tend to take to Excel or SPSS for more careful analysis. So, Elazar, there's Jason asks about variable names, so that the variable names aren't Q13. Let me talk about that for Diane. I promise I haven't forgotten about you, but this is a quick answer. Let me talk about this question very quickly. Jason, I'm going to go back into the post-event survey practice question. My recommendation is to remove question numbers completely and instead put in, now I'll talk about them in a moment, but instead put in a progress bar. So you'll notice here on question numbers, I have this deselected, and then in look and feel, I have a progress bar put in there. And that is this progress bar here, 0 to 100% across the top, and that lets them know how close they are to being done. Now, if you do want to change those questions, we can change those questions. I can go to advanced options and auto number questions, and that auto numbers them. And then I can put any prefix I want. So we could put SW1, Star Wars 1, Star Wars 2, right? You could do it by block numbering. So block 2 will be SW 2.1. You could use the internal numbering, which doesn't give any bit. Oh, after the data download. Jason says after the data download. I see. Or after survey completion. I don't know about that, Jason. We would have to look at that. But we can also change the number of the questions here to make them anything we want as well. Right? We could say do if we were doing a musical question, right? Re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But I don't know how to change the variable names in Qualtrics after survey completion. Jason, that might be a great thing for us to sit down on a Friday morning during our open lab and talk about for a minute. Now, getting back to Diane, setting up Shibboleth authentication for a survey. I'm going to touch on this. And if you have questions, again, it's a great thing for Friday morning. To get to Shibboleth authentication, you're going to go into the survey flow, click on survey flow, and then I'm going to start by adding below, and then I'm just going to move it up. But I'm going to go to the first block and add below, and click on Authenticator. And there's multiple ways to authenticate. You can authenticate via panel, which again, this is one of the first topics that I think I'm going to touch on in my next webinar, if and when that happens. But in addition to panel, you can choose SSO, single sign-on, which is what Mizzou uses, right? And then, if we change capture responding identifying info, we change token to Shibboleth, and then this will use the organization's current Shibboleth settings. So that will send you through our Shibboleth and force the end user to log in and authenticate before they can take the survey. Now, if you want to capture the identifying info, what this does is this allows you to set info from the Active Directory into the embedded data fields once it connects via the shibboleth. So again, we're getting to the end of the hour and this gets really complicated. And also I don't have these field names on hand. I have seen them before, but I don't have them memorized and I don't have them on hand. But if you didn't need to capture it, it would be easy enough to either associate or not associate with panel, but you can SSO via shibboleth right here. So I hope that helps you some, Diane. Try department is one, I think. Right, but the field from the SSO is going to be something like MU dash a word and dash another word. So we have to actually get those fields. But Diane, on Friday morning, be happy to work over that with you as well if that was something you were having any difficulty. And Eleazar asks about qualitative software training. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Eleazar, if you could expand on that question a little bit. So Friday morning is our open lab. It's a time when we 4 trainers just sit and wait for you to come in with your issues. And it's in the Arts and Science building, which is right next to the library. It's a big white building right next to the library. It's Friday mornings in room 25. That's in the basement on the south side. Room 25 of the Arts and Science buildings, Friday mornings from 9 to noon. And the only prerequisite is that you must be an MU student, employee, or faculty member. We don't, you're asking for qualitative software result statistical analysis. I think I'm getting there, Eleazar. And yeah, as far as I know, we don't offer any qualitative analysis. We offer training in SAS and SPSS, but currently IT training does not offer any training in NVivo or other qualitative software research methods. So I apologize that. Great. It looks like I've answered most of the questions there in the chat pod. You guys can continue to fire them at me. I'll continue to answer them. But this pretty much concludes our webinar for today. Thank you all for joining me. I think we're only going to do more and more with Qualtrics. So I encourage you to sign up for either the intro or the advanced class. Send me an email at training@missouri.edu. Attention, Kyle, if you have any cool tips and tricks you think I might not know. And otherwise, let's all keep learning about Qualtrics together. Thanks a bunch.